Chris CKJ, how's it going, y'all? True, very true. Yes, sir, I can.
True, very true.
No, I cannot. Yes, sir, I can.
True, very true.
Say I can hear you, but I can't hear through the podcast. Yes, sir, I can.
Very true.
Say I can hear you, but I can't hear through the podcast. Yes, sir, I can.
Very true.
Yeah, I just found that out. Yeah, I just found that out. Sure. Sure.
All right. Can you hear me now? Let's test it out.
Let's see. Didn't hear anything on the podcast.
All right. Can you hear me now?
There we go.
Test it out.
Right. There we go. Can you hear it now?
Okay, I think that was just me looking at the podcast channel, but yeah. Exactly. Yeah, no worries. Let's see here. I'm waiting to hear the delayed response.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries.
Let's see. Did you say something?
Yeah, no worries.
I hear it, but it just seems a little choppy.
Hear the delayed response. Yeah, no worries. Yeah, no worries. Did you say something? Yeah, no worries.
All right, welcome everybody to the Scene, Subplots, and Sidequests podcast. It is your host, Joshua Awesome, here with my humble co-host.
Chris CKJ, how's it going, y'all?
All right, hopefully we have sorted out our audio and video issues. Only time will tell if we'll ever get this to be non-janky. But, we'll figure it out at some point. We got a good show for you today. We are going to talk about the Daredevil season finale of Born Again and the season 1 review, essentially. We're going to be talking about BG3 Patch 8, and we're going to be talking about a bunch of other various topics like Titan Takedown. Let's go ahead and start off with Titan Takedown. It is we normally start our shows off with some gaming news. And one of the things that we've been watching that has just come out is Titan Takedown. We saw the first 2 episodes. I did get a chance to see the 3rd episode today, but I don't know if Chris has, so we might not necessarily talk about it. But this is a show by Dimension 20 that is inspired by wrestling and Greek mythology. It's starring 4 incredible WWE superstars. I believe it's Kofi Kingston, Xavier Woods, Bailey, and Chelsea Green. But yeah, Chris, we've had a chance to take a look at the first 2 episodes, right?
100%.
Awesome. What do you think of the first 2 episodes so far?
I thought they were really solid. The players did pretty well for time. Just that's some of the things I learned. They're really good at giving a performance with their character, and I Greek kid, color like that.
Yeah. I think Greek mythology and wrestling kind of like go hand in hand with the drama of it all, the theatrics and stuff like that. Like a lot of Greek mythology is very rooted in almost like exaggerations of, they're supposed to be gods, but they're kind of exaggerations of human emotion in many ways. But yeah, the first episode did a great job setting the scene, setting the stage. I love the dome with Dimension 20. Just everything that they have as far as production quality is pretty on point and pretty fire. And yeah, I'm a big fan. I love Brennan's style of DMing as well. He does a really good job at keying into players. This also gave me a good idea of how to run campaigns for newer players. It's one of those things where he did a really good job as to doing the tutorial for each player in each class in a lot of different ways. So it was really cool to watch him kind of guide new players who have these guys have never played D&D before, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, I do like him reminding him hey, remember your character has a sneak attack. It does extra damage because this person hasn't attacked, and just guiding them very well, and also just not you've told me a few things as being a DM, there are some things you want to share and some things you can't share. And be hey, you need to roll this to make whatever you want to do happen, and just really out and vocal about it. And I was dude, that's cool, and just love it.
Yeah, now something that I saw where I feel like if Brennan was in a home game, he probably would have done something completely different. But because he's in a live play setting, he kind of has to keep his set pieces in mind and kind of the plot more focused, right? There's a thing within DMing called railroading, where you kind of listen, every DM does a little bit of railroading when the players give you the rails, right? Players giving you the rails are kind of their backstory and their buy-in to the world. So if they're, for example, if they're a character who's part of a specific faction, that faction is a rail to follow, right? I think Brennan described it best as it's not necessarily rails. The players are carving out the river, and where there might be stopping points or problems. So you want to veer the river in certain directions. Ultimately, you want the end goal to be that end plot, and the characters can fly off in different pathways and stuff like that. But especially with newer players, sometimes they need a little bit of railroading. And it depends on the player. Some players like to have that super open sandbox. Some players want to be fed the narrative and key in on that and keep going to that. So it depends on the table. But I guess what I'm getting at is there was a point where one of the players in Titan Takedown I think it was Xavier Woods. He wanted to do a dance battle. He was like, "Oh man,
Yeah.
I think these guys are like nice guys. I don't think they actually want to kill us or battle us. Maybe we can challenge them to something a little different." And went with a dance battle. And uh, the way Brennan navigated that is he was like, okay, let's flavor all your moves in combat for the dance battle, but ultimately, we're still going to do this battle. We're still going to have this set piece. We're still going to show off these minis. We're going to show off the ring and stuff like that, right? Whereas I think if we were in a home game, he probably would have said, oh, you know what? Screw it. That sounds like a great idea. Let's go ahead and do that. Let me work up a quick scenario here, some mechanics to do a dance battle, right?
Yeah.
So that's I feel like the difference between something like a home game and a live play game. And then I think that scenario would have played out even more differently if it was a virtual game versus like a live game, like in person, right? Like I feel like those vibes change drastically too. Some DMs might be pretty comfortable rolling up something virtually as opposed to rolling something up live and in person. Like some people will come with, markers and grid paper or, maybe not vinyl paper, stuff like that, something with a grid on it that they can draw on. And if you're doing it virtually, you might not have that, but you might have a backlog of virtual maps that you're like ready to pull out at any given moment. And that's where like organization kind of comes into play, making sure that like all your stuff is in a way for you to find it at the very least.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's been pretty cool just watching the entire thing, just him on the spot. Because I do really like the flavoring of all those different attacks, which were pretty cool. And then even just giving like the player characters an incentive of like, hey, they snuck into this bar, they overheard the gods in their conversation and the world and how their moves and all that. Awesome.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to check out episode 3 yet?
No, I forgot that it was released on Thursdays.
Yeah, no, it's on Wednesday nights. It's like when we actually like normally do our podcast is when they release it. So I had a chance to check it out this morning, listen to it at work, and it's really good. I mean, we'll talk about it next week, but
for sure.
I really love the Dimension 20 style too of live play where they kind of do like little seasons and they have like very structured like episodes, or not episodes, but like they have a very structured way of doing their seasons. They like record everything in kind of like batches, you know what I mean? So it's a little bit more digestible than something like Critical Role, which is like, I feel like they might want to maybe do like arcs instead of like everything all in once. Maybe do like a playlist of arc 1, arc 2, arc 3, so that way you can kind of have a jumping on point,
Yeah, because I think if having the arcs would be nice, because Critical Role's average like play or sessions are like 3 to 4 hours, sometimes longer. It's hard a lot of people for them to jump in and be like, okay, what's going on? What did I miss?
Yeah, so for sure.
Arcs would be smart.
And then in some other gaming news, we have some more Nintendo news, a couple of quick Nintendo tidbits. Looks like Nintendo's trying to stock up on Nintendo Switches, Nintendo Switch 2s. They're trying to like get as many in as they can before tariffs kind of like get crazy. So it looks like, at least they're trying to do something in terms of, trying to adhere to demand. Because that will definitely be tough,
Yeah, because everyone goes crazy. Well, hopefully this one goes crazy. But, past generation of them tend to take up really quickly, and it's hard to get them. Or like the PlayStation 5, they don't want that to happen to the newest console. So, up on all that.
Yeah. And then, we got some more details on some of the Nintendo Switch 2 re-releases. We got the Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. The full game plus DLC for the Nintendo Switch 2 is going to be $90.
Ooh.
So this is a game that is years old, almost a decade, I'm sure. And they're coming at us with a $90 price point for the same game that they released with some cosmetic upgrades, it seems.
Yeah, like don't get me wrong, cosmetic upgrades are always nice, but jacking up the price for DLC, even Pokemon DLC is a little bit too much, but this is a little bit outrageous in my opinion, you know?
Oh yeah, dude. I mean, they talk about gaming and it needs to catch up to inflation, but this is the shit that has caught up to inflation. The things with DLC and stuff like that, like this is essentially the price that it was bundled together, like the total, like you know what I mean? Like this is just what the price was with all the DLC when it originally launched. So it's like there's no real value to me to upgrade to the Switch 2 because everything's gonna cost me the same.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna have to rebuy these games, and like I guess with my Nintendo subscription, I could get the games upgraded, but if I don't have that subscription, then what happens? You know what I mean? Like if I have it, then are they all automatically upgraded forever, or is it something where I have to be part of this subscribed service in order to get these upgraded details and graphics and in some cases they're releasing additional content, but not in all cases.
Yeah, because with any digital release like that or what they're doing, they can easily take it away for whatever reason. So, it's just hard to get into that $90 price bracket.
Yeah. Now in some free, more good positive news, I guess. With Marvel Rivals, they had a buff $2.
Yes, they did. They, I don't know if this is true, but it seemed like everyone got a little bit of backlash with a lot of female characters. So they're like, you know what? Everyone gets a buff. And now all the guy characters are, buffed in the, rear end department, if you know what I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. They all caked up now. Everybody's getting a cake upgrade.
Oh, yeah. They're
it's
all
all free.
Venoming.
You don't have to subscribe to Marvel Rivals for that. They're just doing it for the community.
Hell yeah.
Right. Something else that's kind of being done for the community is the Neverwinter MMORPG just added some updates that were inspired by D&D Honor Among Thieves. And I love it when games do this. I love it when a game like recognizes that there's this new thing out and they want to add that and discover that into their game.
Oh yeah, it was pretty cool. And I mean, watching that movie Honor Among Thieves, it was really good. So if they could take it to a game and make that even better, I'm hands down for that.
For sure. And then, speaking of D&D, we got a couple of other awesome things coming out. There's a new D&D Dragon anthology announced. It's called Dragon Delves, and it's kind of a new way they're releasing a adventure book. So this is kind of like Mysteries of Candlekeep and Tales of the Yawning Portal, where it's going to be a compilation, it looks like, of different adventures. And it looks like they're specific to dragons, which is really cool. Ooh. So they're going to, probably include some awesome dragons with some cool personalities, hopefully. I think their philosophy is kind of like a one-page sheet. So you can run an encounter with one page, which is a good philosophy to have. It's like a good way to stay organized and not like have too many things and overwhelming you with choice.
Yeah, and I think it's smart going with dragons. Dragons always catch people's, attention and whimsy in these kind of games. But
yeah, it is half the name, isn't it? And then, speaking of D&D, some good and bad news. The good news is we have some errata updates to the D&D 5e core rules, and we also have an update as to the SRD update, which for those who don't know, the SRD is like the Creative Commons license for Dungeons and Dragons. It allows somebody like myself or Chris or any of your friends to write, create, and publish D&D content, and then sell that content. And so they're looking to get that updated for all the existing rules with the monster manual out, the player's handbook, and the dungeon master's guide. Now that all three of those things have launched, they're going to update the SRD. So that way, if we wanted to make new content and third-party content for D&D, we could do so using the Creative Commons license. Now, in the bad news, we got the head designers of D&D leaving. We got Jeremy Crawford and Chris Perkins leaving, who they've been involved with D&D since 2000, like the original core rulebook, and they've also pretty much been the primary architects for the lore and combat mechanics of D&D 2024. So, there's some really awesome things in there. There's some stuff I wish we had kept. In terms of some mechanics and stuff like that, with some like maybe disease. But I understand the game philosophy that they needed to do in order to kind of like simplify the rules a little bit. But what do you think about things like when major creatives leave their publishers, find new opportunities?
I'm always happy for them to find new and better things to do to either to expand their current, role or just find something new and great. That's awesome that for them. I'm always just like that little bit of scared when it comes to what they're leaving to see
For sure.
what's going to change and who's going to be the main, head of design and all that,
Right.
Wizards of the Coast. Interesting decisions. For more clarity, I'm just interested to see where it goes after they leave.
Yeah, I mean, only time will tell where the hobby kind of goes from here after Chris Perkins and oh my god, after like Chris Perkins and them leave, because they are like huge parts of D&D and like where D&D is now today. So yeah, man, it's going to be interesting how the next generation of game developers kind of take it up, and so we'll see where they kind of bring the hobby from where it was to where it could be. Yeah, I wonder how much of this decision is like was corporate kind of like saying, hey, we're going to offer packages to some of the older developers if you want to leave, if you want to here's your rewards for your hard efforts for the company and stuff like that. Or it's like, hey, we're trying to get rid of some of the older, more higher paid people. I definitely know how that feels like. Where was it a financial decision? Was it a creative decision? We'll never really know.
Oh yeah, it'll be interesting for sure.
And then we have the Doom Dark Ages console wrap for the Xbox Series X and the controllers. I'm really a big fan of the controllers, man. I would like to pick a set of them up, the normal one and the Elite controller.
Oh yeah.
They just look dope. Like they did a really good job, I think, with the design and the color schemes.
Oh yeah, I love the red one, and the green one's just so close to being amazing to compared to the red one. And Doom's always a fun game because just a hack and slash demon. What's not fun about that?
Yeah, the start of the BMFG, dude.
Hell yeah, big fucking gun.
Damn right. And then the last bit of gaming news we have is with BG3. Baldur's Gate 3 released its final patch, which is its final patch in terms of like the big gameplay content and stuff that they're adding and have added. Finally, crossplay between different consoles and different OSs. So Mac OS and Windows, PlayStation and Xbox can all each be on a different platform, yet all play together. And then, of course, all the subclasses and some other like quality of life fixes, story fixes, stuff like that. I know I started a Hexblade playthrough I know you're starting a barbarian playthrough.
Yep, Path of the Giant Barbarian and Rage the First. And it is literally you can kick people around that's a smaller size than you and just go. I don't remember the quite terminology. You go from like medium size to large is what I think, but
Yeah.
it's pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that one's really cool. I mean, I know there's a couple of weapons that I always pick up that fit that play style, so that's going to be super fun. I think what I did is I reclassed or I subclassed Karlak the moment I got her to that. And I think I'm going to try and, except for Lae'zel and the Arcane Archer, that just doesn't make sense. I'm going to try and use some of the companions for a lot of those new subclasses.
Yeah.
We'll see how Gale does as a Blade Singer.
Oh, that'd be hilarious to see.
A blade singing Hexblade could be kind of cool. A blade singing Artificer would be really cool too. I think that would be kind of cool as well.
That's cool. I do want to see that sorcerer, the Black Shadow sorcerer, the one that seems like.
Yeah. There's a lot of the Way of the Shadow, or the Shadow Magic sorcerer.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Drunken Monk. That's actually the type of monk that I played in my first campaign where I didn't DM. I actually got to be a player in it. So
nice.
That I'm excited to reimagine my D&D character in BG3 as best I can. It was like in the 2014 mechanics, like OG. So it's like it was just a half elf. It wasn't like a sub type of half elf. You know what I mean? It wasn't like a wood half elf or a drow half elf. It was just half elf. So I have to choose how I want to interpret that into BG3.
For sure. Yeah. Swashbuck. Like it'd be a lot of fun too.
Yeah. That one, especially if you play smart, that one, I immediately did Astorian and subclassed him into the Swashbuckler, which I think actually kind of makes sense for him. Yeah. I mean, I know Assassin and Arcane Trickster, those two also make a lot of sense. But Swashbuckler, I feel like he's post BG3 if you play a decent playthrough and not make him evil as shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because he has that charismatic voice and the way he acts, and he's a swindler. So I just feel like it just matches him to a T.
Yeah, he would be a good pirate for sure.
100%.
Awesome. Let's go ahead and move on to a little bit of comic and manga news. We'll dive way deeper into it in next week's episode. But we've got some cool announcements. One of the main announcements that I thought was really interesting is Batman Elseworlds. Now, this is a cool series that was announced, and it is basically a more futuristic take on Batman, where Batman isn't necessarily, let's say his Batcave is like Earth, but he's out fighting crimes in the galaxy of Gotham. If you get that, it's like if Batman was a Green Lantern Corps member without any of the Green Lantern powers. You know what I mean? He's basically just flying around fighting crime.
Yeah, he's just flying to different planets, stopping crime, and showing them who Batman is. And I've only seen a little bit, but it'll be quite not too different from a Batman. Way different setting with potentially even cooler characters to him to fight. So
yeah, it's like Batman 1,000 years into the future. I love the character designs for Robin and Nightwing. They've kind of showed those off. So I think it's like a really cool concept, and I'm just happy to not have uber dark brooding Batman. I guess stuck in a cave. It'll be interesting to see a Batman that's going to other worlds.
Him just beat the crap out of a random alien.
Right. And then we got some news with IDW and some of their teases and publishing for 2025. IDW has been a comic book. So I'm a big comic book fan. You have your big two. You got Marvel, you got DC, but the two that have been right behind them essentially have been IDW and Dark Horse Comics, right? So Dark Horse Comics is probably like one of the bigger like major names, but IDW does a lot of independent comics. They do a lot of like just some of the weirder ones. And what's really cool about this is IDW is doing a new Last Ronin, and they're doing like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles line of comics. So they've basically taken that graphic novel of the Last Ronin and expanded upon it. It's like, this is the world, and these are the characters in that world that have survived. But they're also going back to the classic. They also do the classic Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Did you have a chance to take a look at some of those covers, Chris?
Yeah, dude, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles look really cool. I especially love Godzilla. I love the fact that he's glowing green instead of blue. I thought I would. And then just the whole, Mecha Godzilla in one of the comic frames, which is pretty cool. For the Godzilla one, there was the that we're potentially talking. Cool. So I'm interested on that.
Yeah, that one looked really interesting. That was it's like a fantasy take on horror mystery. It's called Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees the Rite of Spring. And the cover for it's like really cool because it's just like a bear that has bloodied paws walking towards the town of Woodbrook. So that one's really cool. I'm also excited about the Star Trek ones, right? So they got Star Trek Red Shirts, Star Trek Strange New Worlds, and Star Trek Voyager, and Star Trek Lore War, which deals with data and lore and their dealings in the comic books. Their dealings just in these Federation and Star Trek in general. I grew up as watching Star Trek with my dad. The Next Generation was one of the things we would watch all the time. So Star Trek always has like a special place. I'm really excited about Strange New Worlds coming out. Something else too that IDW does is the Sonic and Shadow comics.
Yeah.
Which Sonic's pretty big right now after the movie just came out. So IDW's got some really cool things that they're hinting at and in the works for 2025.
Super excited.
Yeah, and then like something else that's been super exciting is all the different TV and movie trailers that have come out. Before we get into some of the trailers that we had a chance to see, something else that's really cool. I've been a Magic the Gathering fan for a long time. I've played the game for years. I used to collect a lot of comics, cards. And packs. Innistrad was one of them. I kind of got out of it as Commander, which is this game type that got really popular, came out. I played a couple games of Commander, but that's like around the time I stopped collecting and stopped purchasing and stuff like that. Started getting into 3D printing and stuff. But the Magic the Gathering movie, so there's a movie coming out for Magic the Gathering, and they might have found a director. And the director is Matt Johnson, a Canadian writer, producer, and director, best known for his role with Nirvana, the band The Show, The Dirties, and Blackberry. And basically, this is an indie filmmaker. So kind of like what Marvel did, I feel like, with Taika Waititi. Magic the Gathering is maybe trying to do with their film, which is going to be interesting. I'm going to be interested to see how deep they go into things like the lore and how much maybe a Magic the Gathering player is going to kind of like freak out over Easter eggs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because like when it comes to Magic the Gathering, I know about the cards, but I don't know much more than that. Like I know how like and be with the different terrains and the different card effects, because I know about Yu-Gi-Oh just a little bit, but Magic the Gathering would be an interesting movie because they can pull so much lore out of a game that's so I'm interested to see what kind of movie they want to do and the lore they want to tell us in this movie.
Yeah, because there's like a lot of lore. I wonder if like what planeswalkers we're gonna see. Are we gonna see like the OGs? Are we gonna see Chandra? Are we gonna see Jace? You know what I mean? Like, are we gonna see some of the artifacts that have been really popular? It's interesting. It's just interesting because there's so much canvas to play with and so many paints. It's gonna be like, where are they gonna even start? And then something that was really funny is Black mirrored their audience.
Yeah.
I thought that was great. So what Black Mirror
Awesome.
did is they released 2 versions of the episode that had allusions to this like one thing that, and they spelled it different instead of Barney or Bernie, something along those lines, and it caused quite a debate and stir amongst the fans because they're like, no, you're wrong, it didn't say that, it said this, and they would like grab screen grabs and screenshots, but they were both right because Netflix Black Mirror essentially released 2 separate episodes of different cuts.
Oh, that is so awesome. I love when, shows do that. They're like, hey, this is what you get and this is what you get. It's a smart way for everyone to show and everyone's, conversations, which
Especially
is awesome.
with a show like Black Mirror, which really like messes with your mind and such. Like that was a great thing to kind of touch on.
Oh yeah.
We got some news from the actress that has been cast to play Toph. Have you had a chance to see the live action Netflix adaptation of Avatar: The Last Airbender, Chris?
I started it, and once I started it, I was like, oh, okay, this is not too bad. And then I put it on pause, but I haven't actually finished it. That's just how I just didn't feel like the original Avatar. So that's why I was like, I'll just hold off for now.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I did, like, I went into it purposely making sure that I didn't compare it to the original and viewed it as its own show and then would compare it to the original. And as its own show, like if I were to introduce Avatar and like, let's say my nieces and nephews and cousins were not in animation, this would be I would feel totally comfortable introducing them to Avatar via the live action. There are certain things they have to do in order to adapt it to live action because they only have so much episode count, so they have to condense storylines. But I felt like it perfectly captured the tone of the world. But in so Avatar: The Last Airbender, the animated series, was if a 5th grader was telling the story. I feel like this Avatar: The Last Airbender is like a young high schooler telling the story.
Interesting. Okay, that's
It's
a good
just
way
more
to look
adult.
at it.
Like if you were looking at it, trying for it to be like a 1-for-1 recreation of the kids show, well then fucking watch the kids show, dude. You know what I mean? Like it just doesn't make sense for me where people are like, oh god, I don't understand why this had to happen. It's like, well, it's a live action adaptation, man. Like not you can't have the like as much of the goofy lighthearted moments, which sucks because that's like part of what made the show. But I think they're doing a good job going from children's drama to like teen drama.
Yeah, I think I'll have to look at it as that type of view because I was like going in, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be like a watch of like maybe they'll change a few things. I just have to look at mindset because
if like you have that like as an X-Men fan, if I had that mindset and I watched all the X-Men films, they're all trash. There's not a single redeeming quality of any of those fucking movies. But as a non-X-Men fan, if I was watching it, they're not that bad. They're good action flicks. You know what I mean? Like I kind of have to take my fandom out of it because otherwise I'm not going to give it a fair shake, I will say Toph's actress Mia Chek spoke to the direct, and basically in filming the new season, they mentioned that Toph's going to be a little bit older, which honestly all of them are a little older, right? Like I'm pretty sure even Aang he's 50, he's like 15 in this. I don't think they're billing him as 13, right? They just can't, because the actors, if you try and do this, you have to film all of the series all at once while the kids are still kids.
Right.
You have to age them up, kind of like with Game of Thrones and a lot of other properties. You have to age them up in order for it to be more appropriate for what they're trying to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So they're trying to tell a story about war, and they're trying to tell a story about a kid trying not to kill a man during war. And that is going to be like kind of like one of the big things in like adult to show up. But this version of Top's a little older, can play it a little bit more feminine, which I think makes sense because in the show they kind of showed young Toph struggling with her femininity and like trying. She doesn't know she's pretty. You know what I mean?
Right.
And needs that reassurance from Katara. So I think that's one of the things that makes total sense too in aging it up.
Yeah, that does make a lot more sense, you know, because of her being a tom thing, like an earthbender, being her change into that type of, you know, character does make a logical sense.
Now, something I would be interested in seeing, what I'd really love, is I would love for the voice actors to play their characters in the last season when they do the Avatar players, where they do the reenactment. They do the basically series recap. I think that would be funny if they don't have to do a whole episode on it, right? They can't. It just wouldn't make any sense. But if there was like a scene of all the voice actors playing their original characters in the Players Act, and maybe just like they say the beginning or the end, I think that would be a fun little thing that they could do, which could be an ode to the a nod to the series.
Oh yeah, that would be pretty dope.
And then they have the new Harry Potter HBO series has officially been cast. And I mean, man, they should have just used the same rules that they did for the original and just go all British.
Yeah, because I did, you know, Harry Potter is like, but seeing as right, he's being played as a black actor, which, you know, personally I don't see too much of a issue, but you know, looking a little bit into it more, of his character, it does seem a little weird they went with a black guy. What I mean?
Well, the problematic casting of Snape being a black guy, even though in the books it says he's like a pale dude, right, is that Snape's character goes through a lot of bullying and a lot of like abuse with his like other classmates, and like, you know, spoiler alert, like, you know, James Potter and stuff like that, and that just doesn't quite look good. You know what I mean? The optics of it would have to be done in such a way so people know. Like, the problem is that there's also like kind of like these racial undertones with Muggles. You know, they're like looked down upon, as opposed to the spellcasting elite who have been wizards for years and stuff. That's also like, there's just like a lot of weird undertones that could be taken out of context or perceived differently now that you have like different races doing this. Now, again, I mean, this is all said in England, so maybe this is just like us being American, just forcing kind of like American ideologies of race onto this thing. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind race or gender swapping on certain characters when it makes sense, but I just don't think it makes sense with Snape. Like, there was a thing where Hermione got cast as a black girl in the Broadway show, and you know, J.K. Rowling said, "I never mentioned her race. I just mentioned she was an intelligent girl with curly hair," right? So those were like the descriptors she used, but that's not what she used for like Snape, right? So are we trying to be faithful to the books? I mean, as long as we're faithful to the characters, that's a big thing. Because, like, you know, in the Fantastic Four, which we'll talk about in just a second, Silver Surfer gender swapped to a woman, and I don't think that's a problem at all.
No.
Actually, let's go ahead and jump into a lot of the new trailers that we saw. We'll start with the Fantastic Four because the Fantastic Four trailer just dropped today. We wouldn't have been able to talk about it last night, but we got a chance to see it today, both you and I. What did you think about the Fantastic Four trailer, Chris?
I thought it was really good. It did a lot of good things. The first thing I want to mention is we finally got stretching power. Don't get me wrong, it was just one scene, but it looked pretty good. One thing I really did love is that the Thing is looked and praised monster being scared, like him lifting. Yeah, let's do it. And then, with the Silver Surfer and being a woman, I was like, dang, that actually does look really cool, really good. And now we're gonna have or they're be born in this Earth also look like a great trailer.
Yeah. I mean, it answered a lot of questions, left a lot of questions as well. I love the shot of Galactus's foot walking. You could see him stride like actually fast and not like a giant lumbering thing, which is terrifying.
Very.
The Thing always thought of himself as a monster, and he's always been loved by the community. He's like a street level hero, right? He's like a Spider-Man. He's like in there. He's buying, he's at the bodega. He's talking to the guy, you know what I mean? Like, these are the street level heroes. He's like a Luke Cage, where he's like in there. So that totally makes sense. I wonder what kind of Johnny we're gonna get, because it seems like if they've been to the Fantastic Four for a while. So are we gonna get a more mature Johnny? Johnny's always cocky and arrogant, but are we Are we getting a comic book right before the Negative Zone type of Johnny? Or are we getting like young Peter Parker best friends Johnny? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which is like they're two wildly different maturity levels, I feel like.
I feel like a good balance would be like, hey, when the Sting's serious, he'll be serious. The time he's just lighthearted. Little brother would be. So maybe it'll be a tight balancing act, but I hope they find that right balance in the movie for him.
Yeah, and I don't mind like the gender swap with the Silver Surfer, because I feel like the sacrifice and solitude of the Silver Surfer does not have to be a male or female thing. It is a spouse and a citizen of that world doing what they can in that moment, knowing that they're kind of like trapping themselves. And I find that to be an incredible thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I think I just hope it's going to be good. Because like you never know with the trailer. Like the trailers make it look great, but you're picking out the best in individual scenes and like putting them into a thing. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that it's going to actually be good.
Sure.
We got the final Thunderbolts trailer as well. I also hope that's going to be good. I have a feeling that this is going to set up almost like a Civil War 2. And the reason why I say that is I think that the Thunderbolts are going to be like the New Warriors in the comic books. And the Void is going to be like Penance or Nitro. Basically, in the comics, the Civil War started because there was a mutant or a powered individual and a group team trying to stop them, and they weren't able to stop them, and that person's ability was to blow up. They blew up, taking out like a city block. Right? I think this is kind of like what the Void is. I think the Void is going to kind of set up this almost like crisis. And that's where the Thunderbolts have to come in. Now, there's a lot of people who think the Thunderbolts are just like the Marvel Suicide Squad, but that is not. They are government entities set up in completely different ways, right? The Suicide Squad are villains who are being forced to do heroic things, whereas these are villains trying to not be villains.
Yeah.
Like the
I
Thunderbolts have
definitely.
always been about more like reform than the Suicide Squad. The Suicide Squad was, we know they're villains, that's why we're going to send them on the suicide mission. The Thunderbolts
Yep.
are like, they're villains, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people. They might have gone down the wrong path or made wrong choices, but at the end of the day, Bucky thinks they can be redeemed because he wants to believe he can be redeemed.
I feel like he, being redeemed in the, Falcon and Winter Soldier series, and this is just continuing on that trend. And I think by the end of this movie, he might, feel. We see Yavanna, I believe that's her name, walk into that giant void, the Black Forest, and we. And I'm like, maybe that is the Nitro situation of half the city being gone in this black mist, and seeing how that goes.
Yeah, and I mean, we already know that Bucky's involved in politics in some way. He's like a senator or something along those lines. So he might be trying to set up a new team. We know also at the end of the Marvels that Kamala Khan is trying to set up her own team. She reached out to Kate Bishop at the end of that movie. So there's a lot of like sprinklings of possibility.
100%.
All right. Let's go ahead and skip past the Adult Swim and Ghostbusters. Maybe we can talk about that next week. Let's talk about Daredevil. Let's talk about the season finale of Daredevil Born Again.
Yeah.
What did you think, Chris?
I thought it went the way I was thinking, as in like Wilson Fisk is not caring about being the mayor. He's just now Kingpin. That's who he is, and he's just embracing that full 100%. I had a feeling he was gonna, kill Matt Murdock because of, finding out everything about, and just, the whole thing just seemed really good, left on a good cliffhanger. I love the speech from Matt at the end, just talking about like, hey, this is our city, not their city. We decide how the city should be. And I'm interested to see how in season 2 that plays out. And one thing I gotta say, that and spoiler alert, ending with the guy, he's like, hey, breaks his damn arm.
Yeah, man, like if you're a guard, you gotta know.
That place.
You gotta know that you're about to get fucking played by
Frank,
dude. That pissed me off a little bit. I was just like, come on, man, dude, what? What? Come on. But it's also, I mean, Frank knows that they're all fanboys, right? So that's why he's like taking advantage. I thought the finale had its ups and downs. Yep. I think overall it was fairly good. It wasn't like a terrible ending. I feel like the problem is knowing that there's a season 2. You kind of know that this season's going to end on a cliffhanger. You know that it's not going to be resolved. I mean, you see Matt like gathering his quote unquote army, but it's like not even really that. It's nothing really. Like he's going to have to train up young girl to be White Tiger. He's got to get Jessica back. He's got to get Luke Cage. Fuck it. Let's get the Iron Fists involved. Let's get everybody back from Netflix and see if we can't revitalize some of the buzz around those characters. Right. I think visually the ending was pretty good. I loved the just the darkness of it all. I loved the dynamic between Fisk and Vanessa. I heard that they were trying to recast. So glad that they stupid shit like just pisses the actor. Get the actor, dude. Like, come on. Like, let's pay homage to these people's talents and what they did. You know,
100%.
I did think so. Let's talk about the series as a whole.
Sure.
I do think that there were some ups and downs. I think that tonally, you could tell a difference that there were two people trying to run the show.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They brought back the original like writers and some of the stunt coordinators, and there were glimpses of the old Netflix show. And then there is what it is with it being a Disney show, and
Right.
I think that Disney's doing what they can, but it just like it just didn't it didn't feel consistent, if that makes any sense. There were just a lot of, to me, inconsistencies amongst the season. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it. I liked it. I think it's been better than a lot of what Marvel has put out over the last couple of years, for sure. I do think, some of the shows get a lot of hate for not no reason, but there's just such high quality that's been out. It's hard when a 7 comes out, it feels like a 5 because there's been so many 9s and 10s. You know what I mean? And that's kind of like what I feel like a little bit of the problem within
for sure.
the MCU and after Endgame is that the bar was set so high that you're trying to do a limbo underneath a lower bar. And it's just tough. I think the thing is that there were some really I feel like, man, I hate Matt's new love interest, right? Like, I feel like she hasn't really gotten. I mean, that's one way to make people who hated Karen love Karen now, is because oh shit, it could be worse. There's this chick who is just making fun of Matt without realizing she's making fun of Matt, calling all the superheroes in masks like little boys and stuff. I'm like, okay, let's have Captain America walk into the room and
slow down.
You tell him he's just a little boy wearing a mask, right? There's just not enough. I don't know, man. It's hard to really pinpoint where it went wrong, because I don't think it really went wrong per se. I just don't think it was as right as it could have been. Does that make sense?
I feel like I'm picking up. Like, I agree with you. I personally didn't think that, and I personally feel like they kind of pushed him to have that girlfriend. And I'm like, you could have told the story without her, right? And I just felt like it didn't need to be, because it kind of reminds me of Invincible season 1, where Mark gets like, I knew you, and I'm just mad because you did this and that. But I feel like somebody.
Oh well, yeah. Because what's funny about Amber is she's way different than what she was in the
you know,
comics. Her
be a little bit more
animated version is actually better than her comic book version, in my opinion. Yeah. No, I get you on that.
Oh, that's
I think
good.
she was integral to the story, though. I just think that the way she was written could have been better. I think there could have been more insight as to her thoughts on superheroes. She teased her interest in it, but I would have loved for them to have had I don't know, a 10-minute conversation about it, because sometimes there were times where the dialogue was really good, and then there's times where the dialogue seemed really bad. And there were times where the pacing seemed really good, and then there were times where the pacing seemed fairly bad. Not necessarily bad, but and then there's it's just certain characterizations. They tried to give Muse a backstory, and they honestly should have kept him a mystery psycho killer, and should have had Matt kill him before, or not kill him, but have a conversation before he spilled the beans on who he was. I think this is a probably poor opportunity for them to have incorporated an Inhuman or a mutant. You know what I mean? That could have been one of the first cases of a mutation, or an Inhuman. So I think that they just they had some opportunities with some stuff, but they just didn't quite follow through on it. And I'm interested to see how season 2 is going to be, because from what I understand, they didn't even want to bring Deborah Ann Wall back, but they brought her back for the first episode and the last episode. You know what I mean? So they kind of ended it. So I feel like that was the old guard, you know, and a lot of the jumbled mess in the middle was like the Disney.
Yeah, I felt like there were just too many cooks in the kitchen, right? Like they're all like, we want to do this, we want to do that, but that doesn't mesh very well. And I just feel like you kind of feel it with this. But at least,
and we'll have to
that was
see
entertaining
like
and
how it all
pretty good
sums
action.
up in
So-
second season too, because like there's some, you know, like let's say for example you were watching Agatha all along. If you didn't stay along for the ride, you wouldn't have gotten the payoff, right? And like there's some
Right.
people's like, oh, you should have hooked me from the beginning. And it's like, well, fuck, dude, that's not the story for you. There's different ways of telling stories, and some stories are slow burns, some are fast right off the gate. And like just because you didn't like the slow burn doesn't mean that it was like a bad story. It's just like it's not your form of storytelling. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And it's like I could see so much potential. It's just I feel like if there was more cohesion in their storytelling, it would have gone. I would give it like 6.5 or 7 out of 10. And I think it has the potential to be a 9 out of 10. There's certain times where it just didn't hit the mark.
Yeah, personally, I would do 7 to 7.5, and the only reason why is like I like a whole bunch of action, and I just like a lot of the conversations between Matt and Fisk in the beginning, and Bullseye definitely being a little bit more characterized rather than a two-dimensional villain. So
I don't want him to
like
be characterized. I want him to be a
little bit
two-dimensional
higher.
villain. He's supposed to be a psychopath that just kills people with fucking paper clips. You know what I mean? He's like John Wick without the conscience. You know what I mean? Like,
Okay,
well, I
that's
guess
fair.
that's my problem with like Daredevil. Is like there are times like Fisk is the layered deep villain. We don't need more layered deep villains. You know, like
Yeah.
if I want layered deep villain, give me more Fisk and give me more Matt. Don't give me this backstory on Muse, dude. He's supposed to kill for the art, and it's just like they gave him too much personality almost. He was so good in the comics because of how unhinged he was and how disconnected from humanity he was. So, but yeah. I mean, again, I'm looking forward to the second season. I'm looking forward to Punisher series. Quite honestly, I really want to like give John Bernthal the reins.
Yeah.
I will say, I think his character should have taken out more officers before he got taken down.
Oh yeah, 100%. I feel like, don't get me wrong, walking in and just starting getting rid of everybody was a very Punisher thing to do, but I would have loved to flashbang or a grenade and just start going ham and start beating people up with his fist, because it seemed like he got took down a little bit too quick, but maybe that's just me.
I mean, these guys are supposed to be like badass police officers too, but yeah, I think like of the 20 dudes, honestly, only 5 should have like survived. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it should have gone down to like to the wire.
Oh yeah.
And then he has to like call back up, and then he has to be like, I hope this is worth it.
100%.
Like, bro, you should have known it wasn't worth it, dude.
Yep. Yeah, and also the fanboying. I was like, okay, that's kind of funny and kind of interesting. Like they're looking at him like a, like, hey, you don't hide. You don't even know my.
Well, yeah. I mean, Frank should have been like,
that
if you really idolized me, you would have put a fucking bullet in Kingpin's head. You know what I mean? Like that's like where he would have been. I mean, honestly, I'm like wondering, like, it would be like, I know old school Punisher, OG Punisher fans wouldn't like this, but I think it'd be really cool if we got Hydra Punisher, if we got fucking undead Punisher. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Frank Castle at the one point finds out the assassination that was done like from his family was like pretty much done by Hydra, and Hydra's kind of been grooming him. Or not the Hydra, the Hand has been grooming him to be like, you know, a soldier of killing, and basically he then leads the Hand. Yeah, dude, there's a lot of cool Frank Castle shit where like the one where he becomes Ghost Rider, but he also becomes a Herald of Galactus at the same time, and he's like the Herald of Galactus Ghost Rider. That shit's crazy. Yeah, or Herald of Thanos.
Yep, I've heard of that
pretty
one.
much what it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. Because the thing.
All right. Well, I think
Yep,
that's
he's the
pretty
last
much
movie.
it. I think we got past all of our technical difficulties. Hopefully, we won't have the same issues and problems as last time. But yeah, we'll see. Looks like my trick to try and move this to a different computer didn't work because the stream is worse. The quality is choppy. So I'll have to try and figure that out at some point, or you know, maybe next time we'll have you host, Chris. All right. Well, this is us signing off, seeing Subplots and Sidequests. See y'all next week for the next episode. Have a good one.
See you guys. Notes are done.